All right, everybody, welcome into episode 103 of the only American and Brazilian sports podcast, Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. As always, returning a tendency of the United States, returning to my kneel and checkerboard background, it is Nick Hill, and joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Yes, how are you doing on this Tuesday night?
Doing great, doing great. Lot to talk about in Brazilian and American sports. Definitely ready. I know it's late here in Brazil since daylight saving time ended in America, so now is almost midnight here. But I'm pump it up. Let's do it because we have a lot to talk about. Because that's why I love November and December. That's best time for sports in Brazil and US.
Absolutely. There's just so much going on. And of course, this week in America, we add another sport onto the pile. College basketball is underway. I've got a quad box up here on YouTube TV. If they have this on every single night for college basketball, this whole season will be lit. Main game on right now is Auburn and Baylor. A good friend, Bruce Pearl, former coach of the Vols, now coaching Auburn, put up against the top 25 team in Baylor. Auburn leads 32 to 28 in a neutral court game. Or some other blowouts on. Shocking score, though. Well, maybe not so shocking. Purdue Fort Wayne beating DePaul by 10. But DePaul has been bad for a very long time. I don't think I've ever even seen them make the tournament. So
Yeah, they're a historical program that kind of fell in the last couple of years.
absolutely. And before we really get into college basketball, I do want to start off by acknowledging the death of Bob Knight, obviously a legend at Indiana. He also coached at Texas Tech, won multiple national champions, of course, known for his fiery demeanor, known for his intensity, and bringing Indiana basketball to prominence. Of course, Indiana is just um, one of the most
Historical programs.
absolutely, yeah, one of the most historic programs in all of the country. And Bob Knight was a huge, huge reason why. Also, shout out to my mom. She is saying hi, guys. And
Oh, hi, Rhonda Howard Hill. It's very happy to have you on our show. Normally, my mom is on the show, but now she's asleep. But she was here early to make sure I
well,
didn't.
it's almost midnight down there, so I can understand why she's almost there. But anyway, but clearly, and Bob Knight obviously it was controversial, but at the same time, he was fiery. He was super entertaining. I mean, him throwing chairs against Purdue. Have you ever listened to the locker room meltdown he had with his players, where it was a very explicative later rant where he's talking about I can't believe we're sitting here with an 8-10 bleeping record. I'm tired of losing the bleeping Purdue. And he's yelling and cussing the players, saying, you know, that I'm gonna make this the worst week of practice you've ever had, and it's just insane. Um, I guess my question is, where does Bob Knight rank amongst college basketball coaches all time?
Oh, he's definitely on the top 10. Winning multiple national championship. I think was one of the coaches who won the most national championships. I think he by the end of his tenure at Indiana, he kind of lost track in terms of the way college basketball was leaning towards. But nevertheless, he took Indiana to multiple national championships, and again, he'll always be remembered. I think he'll be the same category as as this coaches that make history in the 80s and 90s, like Coach V, like
John Wooden is one that comes to mind. You have, of course, Adolph Rupp in the early days of basketball. And I think one part of his legend that we should mention is he coached the last undefeated college basketball team. The 1975-76 Indiana Hoosiers went 32-0 on their way to a national championship. They were number one from beginning to end, winning every game by basically double digits. I mean, they were just dominant this entire season. And and frankly one of the greatest basketball teams of all time. And it just goes to show truly how um,
But
influential he was.
and 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 I think for the Hoosiers fans, it was good to honor him in life because he left Indiana in a distasteful way, and he stayed multiple years not coming back to the Memorial Arena. And I think by February 2020 he makes his return, and he was just ovationated. Like he was, the court went down. Like fans just screaming, honoring. Like that scene probably is gonna be the memory of Hoosiers fans now because they can say we honor him in life. He didn't die without the fans his love, showing love towards him.
Absolutely, and every coach since then at Indiana is always going to be compared to him. Like it's just he is the standard at Indiana, and of course Indiana in this decade or in this century has just not been great. I mean, they've had some really good teams, but more often than not, they've been more like Nebraska football than you know what Indiana basketball
Yeah,
should be.
I think you make a great comparison. Indiana basketball is like Nebraska football. They still hold to the memories of the last century, and this century, unfortunately, they've been a shadow of the past.
Oh, absolutely. Um, But obviously, rest in peace to Bob Knight. There's a huge deal up in Indiana, and we'll see how the Hoosiers play this year. There certainly could be a point of inspiration. Of course, their coach is Mark Woodson, and he was a player underneath Bob Knight, or Mike Woodson rather, was a player underneath Bob Knight because he used to coach for the Knicks before going into college basketball, and he also shout out to players like Isaiah Thomas as well, who were coached by Bob Knight, went on to be all-time NBA players, and of course that guy should have been on the Dream Team if it wasn't for Michael Jordan hating him. So, you know, but that's a conversation for another day. But obviously, we extend our condolences to the family and the friends of Mr. Bob Knight, who was 83 years old at the time of his passing. Anyway, so moving into more positive news, into the modern day, as I'm sure Bob Knight would love us to do, to preserve, to focus on the game of basketball just as much as he loved it. And, we are underway. Of course, it's a long season. It's just early November. And we have, I guess, the conception of truly only March matters. But I, as a fan, am going to try to make the whole season matter for me personally, because I have come to the conclusion after last March. Because I'll be honest, the ending of last season left a bad taste in my mouth, and it's not just because Tennessee lost to Florida Atlantic. And obviously that has something to do with it, but it seemed to me that last year's March Madness jumped the shark. It was too upset laden for my taste. Now, I think March Madness should have upsets. I mean, it's March Madness. That's kind of the point. But it got to the point where there were too many, and the quality of the game suffered because of it. So by the time we got to the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and national title, the game sucked. Like, if you looked at the women's game for comparison, we're going to have to talk a little bit about the women as well, too, here in a little bit. Uh, when you look at the Iowa South Carolina game or Iowa LSU, those games had star power. Those games were more cleanly played. Those games, frankly, were better basketball being played than the men's games. Like, it was better than UConn San Diego State. Like, that was a pathetic excuse of a college basketball national championship game. And what I'm hoping to see from college basketball this year is just better play across the board. I thought last year there weren't a lot of stars. There was just a lot of mediocre teams at best. And when you got to March Madness, it was just chaos everywhere. And it just felt like, okay, what are we actually rewarding here? Are we going to reward good seasons in March Madness? Because it just doesn't feel like right now that was the case, especially last year. And I'm curious if the pendulum will swing back the other way this year.
like college basketball is such a hard, like the format of NCAA college basketball. It's so hard to uh, figure it out because it's like, okay, you still need to have a regular season to define what teams goes to March Madness. Like that still matters. Like, but in like what the last 5 to 10 years, it feels like everybody knows who's gonna be in it, and we love the upset, but we ended up having, like you said, too much of it. Then we don't know who to root for. But I guess it's hard to say because like if this year was kind of like a bummer, last year was a thriller. Like we had North Carolina Duke in the semifinals, in the Final Four. That was one of the most historical games of all time. So sometimes there's a fluke, sometimes there's history. Like that's the beauty of a playoff tournament.
Right. I mean, it's easy to forget games like that because yeah, that was the Final Four before last was one of the greatest Final Fours we've ever seen. And last year just felt like it was really a dud. And I'm really hoping we'll get to a point where we start seeing some star power back. But I think maybe with the transfer portal, you look at a team like Kansas. We have the number one. We have the AP poll up. It's like Hunter Dickinson transferred from Michigan to Kansas. He is going to be a star this year because you got Duke. You have Zach Edey at Purdue. Of
Oh,
course, Purdue.
Nick,
Yes.
did you saw also speaking of Kansas? Bill Self now has a lifetime contract with the Jayhawks.
I mean, I think it's deserved. I mean, the vast majority of coaches don't deserve a lifetime contract, but he has two national titles. He's won every conference title, felt like, for 2 decades. I think that that's well deserved.
Yeah, it was was a press release today. The Hall of Fame coach Bill Self signs a minimum lifetime contract with Kansas University, KU Athletics. He has 700 plus wins, multiple national championships. I think is what because this was deserved. The way, let's say, the other lifetime contract that we have underneath ongoing right now is John Calipari, and Kentucky fans never saw this contract being worth of it.
No, no. And speaking of Coach Cal, real quick, since we're on topic, you see where during the exhibition game against Kentucky State, he asked the other team not to play zone because his team had not practiced it yet.
God.
Like what in the world are they doing? How have you not practiced zone offense yet? Like, teams are going to throw that at you because you have one of those talented rosters in the country. Like, every team should know how to play against the zone.
I compare John Calipari with the former Corinthians coach of this year, Vanderlei Luxemburgo. Both were really good in the 90s, really good, had peak in the mid 2000s, but since then fell off a cliff, have brand name recognition, but they feel out of touch. Like both Calipari and Luxemburgo feels this way, and I don't know how long Kentucky fans are going to put up with that because it feels like Kentucky, for the past decade has been, kind of in the secondary or even tertiary kind of tier in the college basketball. It shouldn't be like that.
Oh, absolutely. Like, they have every March you can count on Kentucky to choke. Now, 2 years ago, they had a team that was capable of winning it all, but remember, that was the team that lost to the team before Farley Dickinson. It was who was the team that went to the Elite Eight 2 years ago? It was not Sacred Heart. It was because it was the Peacocks were their name. Remember, their nickname was the Peacocks, and they're from New Jersey. Why can I not remember what that team was? Because they beat Purdue too, and then they went all the way to the Elite Eight.
Oh, is that it's not, that's not St. Peter's Peacock. St. Peter?
St. Peter's. Yep, St. Peter's. that was a program-defining loss for Kentucky, losing that game. And I think ever since then, Kentucky fans have every right to be extremely critical and doubtful of Coach Calipari. Just like how this year, I think, in terms of coaches that have a lot of pressure, Calipari is one of them. I think Matt Painter at Purdue should have pressure turned up to 1,000 on him this year after losing to Parlay Dickinson in the first round last year. I think Purdue has so much to prove this year. And I want to see, have they surrounded Zach Edey with shooters that can bail him out if a team is going all in to defend Edey? And they're going to have to prove that. It's, a team that, already failed their first test was Michigan State. They lost to James Madison last night. And, they lost last week in an exhibition to the Vols at home. They lost both of these games in East Lansing. Like, just Michigan State, that's an athletic program. It's not a good time for them right now at all. It just gets worse and worse.
I guess when the football program implodes, the rest of it kind of suffers a little bit.
Absolutely. So looking through the rest here, of course, got Marquette at 5 with Shaka Smart. UConn, your defending national champion, starts at number 6. I know those folks are glad that basketball is here, because football did not go well for them this year. Houston, Creighton, are Tennessee Volunteers at number 9, the only SEC team in the top 10. And then the team that knocked them out last year, the Florida Atlantic Owls, right there at 10. And, people want to act like FAU was an embarrassing loss. No, FAU was underseeded crazy last year. They were 33-3 for a reason. They were a great team. That was just a tough matchup for the Vols. Now, looking for the rest of this here. Oh, oops. Okay, looking for the rest of this here. What kind of stands out to you?
One thing is standing out to me: Alabama not being ranked. Being ranked 24. They went down 23 positions from their last ranking. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, losing Brandon Miller will do that to you. Of course, obviously for legal reasons, that's probably for the best. But it is. And hey, USC 21. Of course, this is a team to watch this year, just because will we see Bronny James play at all? Of course, he had the cardiac arrest issue a few months ago, and he's still recovering from that. So, can he make a Keontae Johnson at Kansas State recovery and come back and play? That will be determined. UNC as well, because Hubert Davis, year 1, upsets Duke in that Final Four semifinal, comes up just shy of winning a national title. Last year, completely imploded after being preseason ranked number 1, wouldn't even accept an NIT bid. UNC, I feel like, Hubert's either going to the Final Four or getting fired this year.
Yeah. Kentucky being 16, fair. Yeah, overall, I think Gonzaga should be probably in the top 10.
Absolutely. Well, I believe they lost. God, who was that one guy? I forget who I'm thinking of, but they lost their star player from last year. So, it's going to be interesting. And of course, there's a lot of games that have to happen. Now, obviously, we are mostly invested in our basketballs, our Tennessee Volunteers. And of course, they're preseason ranked number 9, as we mentioned. And so far, so good. They go on the road, beat Michigan State in exhibition, and they've been beating on a couple of low-mid majors, including Tennessee Tech yesterday, 80-42. This game was like 32-8 at one point, just absolute dominance. I don't know how much you really can take from it. It's Tennessee Tech.
The only thing that was good was the return of Sakai Ziegler. That was the only thing you can, take from this game is the return of Sakai Ziegler, because we know how much the Vols missed him in March.
Oh, yeah, and obviously Dalton Neck and Jordan Gainey look really good early on. Now, we're going to learn a lot more on Friday night. They go to Wisconsin up in Madison against the Badgers, and I think that's going to be a super interesting game. Big Ten teams have given Tennessee some fits over the years, And I think this would be a good opportunity to get a good early season road win at Wisconsin on Friday night. Especially because I remember last time Wisconsin came to Knoxville. Remember that was, I think, I think it might have been.
2019,
Yep,
2019. I remember that day. It was a Saturday in the late December.
yep, because that was after we lost Lamonte Turner and before we got Santiago Vescovi.
Yeah, I was gonna cover that game, but I had other issues that happened on that day. But I remember vividly. And by the way, Vanderbilt starts their season 0-1, losing to Presbyterian by
Awesome
6.
job, Bryce. Let's go. Wait, hold on. No, Jerry Stackhouse. Wow, what a start to their season. Losing to Presbyterian. Memorial Magic is alive and well. I mean, oh, Jason's in the comments. He's asking, "Where's Dylan?" Well,
He's coming next week. He'll be next week if he our
let me
schedule.
message him and see. Uh, he would be willing to come on now. Or,
Oh, and also Louisville won. That's. I mean,
yeah. They beat who was it? They beat UNBC by a point. Which hey, Virginia could not beat UNBC, so technically Louisville is better than Virginia.
that's good. That's a good point.
Technically, the Cards are better than at least one ACC team. But yeah, obviously I know for Louisville it's Dylan can come on, by the way. So yeah, so let's yeah, I will give him a link and we'll definitely bring him on to talk about this. But back to
College basketball.
yeah, so back to the Vols. Let's see.
Yeah, the Vols had a really good game. Of course, there's not much can take from Lyon Rhine and Tennessee Tech. Of course, that Michigan State game, it felt like a regular season game despite being an exhibition game. But that's true. Like, we're going to have a 2 test on Friday against Wisconsin. And it's a legit basketball team, especially when I remember that 2019 game. Tennessee had a really bad game. So, and a good point by Jason. Louisville lost to Leroy Rhine. So
Yep, they did. So, hey, yeah, at least Louisville has won the record right now. So, yeah, actually, I'm kind of curious, what is their schedule like? Because I know obviously they're going to play Kentucky at some point in probably December. Oh, they got the Mocs next. They have the Chattanooga Mocs on Friday night. Jason, I'm sorry, but the Mocs they might win that one because the Mocs, they've been pretty good. Granted, we don't have Jake Stevens anymore, and he was by far the best player on the Mocs last year. A center that could shoot threes. So, yeah, but anyway, yeah, Friday night, that's going to be interesting. Mocs at the Cards. They do have Texas next week. Jason says, the more we lose, the quicker Kenny Payne is fired. All right, so I guess, yeah, so hopefully the Mocs will help accelerate that process for you. We're in tank mode in Louisville because you got DePaul. Now, I will say this. DePaul is losing to Purdue Fort Wayne by 10 right now. So Louisville, I feel like, is going to win that game because DePaul's probably is worse. They get Kentucky on the Saturday before Christmas, the 21st of December. So, and of course, that, obviously for Kenny Payne, that one game, I mean, if you somehow pull off the upset against Coach Cal, that will buy you some goodwill and some time, I would imagine.
yeah, that's true. And again, what we can take from November college basketball is watch for the upsets. I mean, I don't think much is going to happen in the rankings. And in terms of the Vols, is they need to find rhythm for March.
Absolutely. But, yeah, but I'll say this. I'm excited for Vols basketball. Multiple coaches are saying that they think the Vols are a Final Four caliber team. A lot of experts are picking them, which makes me kind of nervous because, as I said, I don't think you can really predict that preseason, and you got to stay healthy. But I think this team is as deep and as capable as any team Rick Barnes has had. Definitely since at least the last Grant Admiral team. I think this could be the best Tennessee team since that team. And I think we're due for some special stuff this year. Rocky Top on the hardwoods. So hopefully the boys keep it up and go badger hunting on Friday night. Go get those badgers. On the other side, on the women's side, real quick, Lady Vols, they started tonight. They got their first win of the season against Florida A&M by 29. Yeah, they played Team USA in an exhibition the other night. Obviously, I mean, they lost, but hey, it's Team USA. Like, I'm not going to expect any team to beat them. They're preseason ranked 11. Kind of what are the expectations for Kelly? Because, I think most people now accept that, that women's basketball is much more competitive than it used to be. Like, I used to be at Tennessee, it was Final Four or bust every single year, especially when Pat Summitt was here. But that's not the case anymore. It's a way different sport. And now for me, if we're making Sweet 16s consistently, I think that's a good place to be in as a program. And if you can make that enough, then maybe a couple of times the ball will go your way and you can make a Final Four here or there. And I think Kelly is going to keep us in that position. And I think this team this year could keep us in that position as well.
Yeah. Before we move on to some more cold topics, I would say this. Probably Kelly has been improving every single year, and definitely the Lady Vols fans, especially the old ones, expect to see another run for a title, because the demographic for Lady Vol fans are really the old demographic. But I guess, like you said, it's not like it used to be Final Four or bust, but definitely fans expect to see this team improving.
Absolutely. And when you look at the team tonight, Caroline Strickland was your highest scorer with 20 points. Not too shocking. Of course, you have Hollinshead with 5. You have Jackson with 13 tonight. Rakea Jackson, a senior. And, she's going to be such an important player for us, I think. And also, shout out to Jewel Spear as well. And I believe she's a transfer, if I'm not mistaken. She had 20 for us tonight. And that's really going to be huge. Having players that can bake their own buckets. It's almost like the women's team is just a little bit of the men's team in a microcosm. And I think the X factor here, can Tamari Key get to 100%? Because Tamari Key, she had, I believe it was a lung issue last year, had to sit out the rest of the season, and it really hurt us down the stretch not having a true center. Because if you can have an elite center in women's basketball, it gives you such an advantage. Because there's only so many elite centers, I mean, in any form of basketball, but especially women's basketball. And Tamari Key has that potential if she can be healthy. Like how the men's team needs Sakai Ziegler, the women's team needs Tamari Key. And she only played 7 minutes tonight. I think clearly for Kelly, she has to get her kind of acclimated to game pace. It's like with Rick last night, he didn't play Sakai until a little while in and didn't play him too much. You got to get these two players on both sides of the Tennessee basketball programs some time to reacclimate themselves. But I think once they do, they'll be massive game changers.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll see what happens next. But
Absolutely.
Let's move on.
I know they have a big game. Just go ahead.
No, I was gonna say they have definitely a big game, and we'll see what happens. But I guess that's to have a more colder topic because we have a guest.
Absolutely, coming to us from I don't know. Actually, where are you these days, Dylan?
Maryland.
Yeah, I'm back in Maryland now.
I apologize for missing you in Neyland on Saturday.
I'm completely understandable. Homecoming week turned out to be a lot more hectic than I thought it was going to be. I had 1,000 people I had to see. A lot of stuff just didn't work out, but there's always next year. And Hey, I might be back
Or
around for a basketball game if you want to hit one up.
Oh,
or or
absolutely.
or come to Florida for the bowl game because I'll be there at the bowl game.
Why not?
Yeah, let's
Anything
go.
Tennessee, I will happily go watch, regardless of where it is,
Uh,
if it's something that's actually worth my time.
Yeah, and
yeah,
hey, and before we get into hockey, I do want to just ask your opinion real quick on the Vols basketball game, especially because I think both teams have a lot of potential this year.
So the men's team, I kind of caught the tail end of your top sentence about Ziegler not immediately starting, because I was at the game where he blew out, what was that, his ACL?
Yeah, I believe that was the Arkansas game, if I'm correct, last year.
Yeah, I was fifth row for that, and we'll get into a lot of depressing injury subjects later, but that's probably one of the worst things I've ever seen in person, just hearing him scream. And the fact that he's starting slow, he's not playing at the level he was prior to the injury last year. But the fact that he's made progress in, I want to say that was February he got hurt. It makes me hopeful that we can probably make more progress than we did last year in the tournament, I'd like to think. And then the women's, I also heard you mention that it was the national team. Exactly that. It's the national team. You're not expecting a win, but I know our women's basketball team always has those high standards. We tried to live up to the standards that Pat Summitt set for us. Of course, things happen. It's impossible to live up exactly to them. But as long as we get some semblance of success, then I don't think it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, and it's all about how you come back from a horrible injury like that. And so Kai Ziegler is a fighter. This is a guy who had a tough childhood growing up. I mean, literally, his family lost their home a few years ago. Remember, like the Vol Nation rallied around his family, losing their home in a fire. He's faced adversity all of his life. But the way he responds is the reason why he's in Knoxville, because Rick Barnes loves gritty, tough players like that. And despite his size, right? Like he's the smallest player on the court every time he steps out there, but he's the guy with the biggest heart. And I'm not concerned about him at one iota about coming out and being good by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's all about doing what you can to recover from a setback like that. Look, Hendon Hooker obviously hasn't played at all in the NFL, but I'm excited to see how he recovers from his injury. I know those are pretty gnarly ones. I've seen them several times. They come back. It's not the same, but it's possible to come back from.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm definitely excited to see it. Okay, so let's go into some NHL. And before we get into regular season talk, obviously, I know the reason why you hit me up to come on today, and it's a tragedy what happened. So, like, for anyone who didn't see what happened, and definitely we're not going to play it on here. It's pretty graphic. Just kind of describe what happened to Adam Johnson last week in a game in England.
So the way I kind of looked at it, there was one player who kind of was getting bumped off the puck. I had a hard time telling if it was Adam Johnson or not, and I partially don't remember because I'm trying to forget watching it as much as possible, as disturbing as it was. The player who ended up slashing Adam Johnson's throat went for the best way I can describe it is the most WWE kick I've ever seen. And you and I were texting about this earlier. He probably didn't mean to get him in the neck, just get him in the chest or something, push him off. But you can see my neck right now. I'm even wearing kind of a jersey for reference. I don't have the pads. There's like maybe about, I want to say that's inch and a half of space of just bare skin, where if you get hit in the right spot, it's going to open vein or an artery. I don't know the proper medical terminology. There's a reason I was a journalism student. but unfortunately, he passed away at the hospital as a result of this accident. And it's got everyone freaking out about protection for your neck or your wrists. And to be honest, I'm all for it because it's the three biggest things that terrified me when I played, in no particular order: concussions, my spine and neck, and getting cut by a skate. Because you do what you can to protect yourself. I wore elbow pads that basically touched my gloves with very little space. Um, I wasn't a super physical player, so I never really had to roll the dice on going into the boards against someone and stuff like that. But all these precautions you have to take to make sure it doesn't happen. And every time it happens, the same debate comes up. Should neck guards be mandated? And I say yes, for those very reasons.
Yeah, and as someone, because obviously I've never played hockey, I can't really ice skate. I've tried ice skating, I don't have the balance for it. And that might just be because I'm a Southern boy from Tennessee. I've never seen a natural ice pond in my life. But describe how sharp these skates are, because from what I was reading, like hockey players like sharpen up like before every period. Like how sharp are these things?
So hockey skates are the blades. If you look kind of down them, they're in kind of a U shape. So the edges are the more sharper part with a thing or a divot in the middle. At least that's the way I get them. A lot of players do things differently. And if you like rubbed your hand against it, it's not going to get you. I've done it several times on accident, just wiping all the excess snow and ice off my skates. It's fine. Now, one thing I do want to bring up actually is the one time I have seen someone get cut. It was with a rental skate, which are typically figure skates, which are a lot thinner blades and a lot sharper, just for balance, turning, stuff like that. I'm not a figure skater, so I'm explaining it the best of my knowledge. And those are more knife-like, I guess. And kid fell, kicked his feet in front of him, got him in the wrist. Very grisly looking, but thankfully they were able to take him to a hospital and take care of it. So it really depends on how you get them cut. And I don't want to say luck, because it's a very unlucky thing to happen, but just the angle of how the skate hits your skin.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the idea of like you're skating and then just a skate just coming through your neck is just insane. I mean, to me, I think what this could end up almost being like is kind of the post NASCAR era after Dale Earnhardt died and the mandating of the hands and neck safety device, or the Hans device. So before Dale Earnhardt, this device wasn't mandated, and when drivers crashed right into a wall, basically what happened is they would crash and they would basically go through like this. And that's how Dale Earnhardt died. When he crashed in the wall at Daytona, he went forward, basically hit his head on the steering wheel and died. It caused a basilar skull fracture. That's how a lot of people die in car crashes. And just normal cars, because we don't have those same restraints. I almost wonder if this is going to be like that for hockey in terms of having the neck guard of trying to prevent that, because this wasn't an NHL game that this happened in. But the next time it could happen, it could be in an NHL game. And then what?
I think it was last season, Evander Kane took a skate to the wrist, which that was very obviously accidental. I can't remember who it was, but Kane was on the ground, and in the process of kicking his foot up to skate. What's up, Gus?
No, but I was gonna say in this debate, as sad as this episode is, and as sad for the hockey community it is, there's not gonna be any changes until something dramatically happen in the pros. like you made a comparison, Nick, in terms of what happened to Dale Earnhardt, to Dale, and this happened in NASCAR Pro. It didn't happen in the Xfinity race, in the truck race. It happened to the pro, like to the main category in NASCAR.
Right,
So
and there were other Cup drivers who had died before him, but they weren't Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, Dale Earnhardt was the Tom Brady of NASCAR.
like Ayrton Senna in Formula One. Like Ayrton Senna was the biggest hero Brazil ever had in not only in racing but like in sports in general. He died racing, and then led to a number of changes in Formula One safety. And literally 2 days before Ayrton Senna died, another racer died too in the same track. So until something really big happen in the pros, there won't be any changes, in my opinion.
As I was saying, it happened to Evander Kane. He took the skate to the wrist, and the kind of good thing is it was a small enough cut in. It was a critical spot, but the wrist is a lot easier to treat than the neck because it's right here. You can raise it and elevate it easy. He just skated to the bench and was able to get it taken care of. I think he was out for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, but he returned and was able to fine, and he started wearing better protection for his wrists because of it. But thankfully, I don't think we've had an incident in which a player took one to the neck in the NHL since Clint Malarchuk, Buffalo Sabre goalie. I'd say it was like the late 80s, early 90s. Probably the most graphic of all of these videos that are coming around now. There's a scrum in front of the net. A player lifts his foot up at the angle that it would cut it, and his blood just all came out at once. Like if you watch the video of Adam Johnson, thankfully it's poor quality enough that you can't see the blood. But even for 90s footage, the Clint Malarchuk incident, you just see a massive red stain on the ice, and it is very disturbing. And that's what I'm pretty sure that's actually what got goalies to wear the plastic neck guard that hangs off of their helmets. I don't know how mandated and widespread it is. There's a few goalies that I don't think wear it, but it's incidences like these where we've been talking about forever in the NHL. When is something going to happen where they make full changes?
Yeah, and Jason Warwick, he commented, first that you cut the jugular there and then you're toast, and that's obviously what happened to Malarchuk and Johnson in those two cases. But he also added that I don't think this will be quite like Dale Earnhardt. You didn't see Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid die in a game. The difference, in my view, is I think the NHL will act proactively before it happens in the NHL on the backs of the NHLPA lobbying for it. And I think the Players Association will be key in these. But as you said, not every goalie does it. And I'm sure there's going to be some more probably purist players who are like, no, I don't want to wear it. I can't. It isn't comfortable for me to play it, to wear it.
So the thing about the purist players is there aren't many left that grew up in a time where, take it even far enough, visors weren't mandated. There might be a couple left in the league. I can't name any off the top of my head. But what they kind of did, and this is what I think the NHL should end up doing, grandfather it in. If you're in the league right now and you're not wearing a neck guard because you don't want to, that's fine. But everyone else coming in, you're going to wear a neck guard because safety precautions matter. TJ Oshie of the Capitals, I'm not trying to be biased, I just think this is a very good example, has his own athletic brand and sells shirts with padding around the neck to wear underneath your extra shoulder and chest pads. And he started wearing them in practice and at games because he's in his late 20s, early 30s. he has very young kids. He wants to be around for his family. And if something were to happen, he needs to do what he can to make sure he can be around.
Yeah, and that was the thing with the Hans device, because there were 7 drivers who were wearing that device. Like Dale Earnhardt was demonstrated that device. He was like, "Nope, I'm good. I've never had to drive with these before. I'm not going to." And well, unfortunately, we saw what happened. Um, so I think the grandfather idea will probably be the most appeasing, I guess, for the older players. But I think at a certain point, the NHL is going to have to step in and say everyone's wearing it, or else they're not playing.
I hate to say it, it would take something like the Clint Malarchuk incident to make it everyone has to wear it. But then the also issue is I'll bring back another story from my experience. We played a tournament in Canada. I want to say I was like 9 or 10. And in Canadian youth hockey, the neck guards are mandatory. But back then, it was like wearing a thick dog collar. It was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever worn while playing. When a lot of people think neck guards, they think that. But going back to TJ Oshie's brand, it's just like a regular turtleneck, but it has like a piece of gel or foam or plastic or something in it where if you take a skate into it, then you're fine. It's more about comfort than whether or not they want to do this, to be honest. Which sounds kind of stupid. I'd rather be uncomfortable and safe than liberated and be rolling the dice every time I'm on the ice, scrumming in front of the net and end up falling on the ground.
Yeah, I wish everyone else had that same mindset, and because how dangerous it is. Like I've played games on the ice, and I can't relate to that. I've never played it, but definitely I just know from watching it how tough everyone has to be to play that sport, because you take just so many hits playing it, and I'm all for whatever we can do to make it safer.
Yeah. And the kind of good thing is net guards and protection of your wrists are one of the few things that we actually have a chance to mitigate and make sure it doesn't happen again, because there's going to be a dirty hit where someone lands awkwardly on their head or hits their head weird against the boards. Most of them are accidents, but that's just a matter of physics. You can't prevent those rather than just teaching safe hitting both on the giving and receiving end. But you can prevent getting cut. It's as simple as putting a thicker piece of material over the critical places. And the concussions, that's more of a tougher one, because they say the technology is always evolving. I have had a supposedly concussion-proof helmet where it prevents concussions better. But again, I'm not a medical professional, so I'm probably explaining things not in the proper way. I feel like those more advanced helmets are more from preventing your skull cracking, because regardless of how hard you hit your head against the ground, your brain's going to jiggle. And so you can't really, that's another thing about physics. It's just going to jiggle in your head, but your skull will be fine. You might walk away with concussion. You might not. It's just a matter of how hard you get hit.
Yeah, and Jason also points out this incident will almost certainly generate the interest rather, in creating an effective but comfortable solution. Soon we'll see a variety of these things that are more comfortable and mobile, but safer as well.
And going back to the dog collar I was talking about, like you couldn't turn your head very well. It was like we were actually talking about this earlier. Have you guys seen the I guess would have been the 1989 Batman movie with Michael Keaton, where he's wearing the bat suit and kind of has to look around with his shoulders? It's because he can't turn his head. It's the same exact thing. And as long as players can turn their head and don't have a thick piece of fabric rubbing against it, it's all good.
Yeah, they just got to get the Robert Pattinson version.
Yeah, there you go.
And they will be more than fine. But obviously, condolences to the family of Adam Johnson, because that's just an awful way to lose a loved one in a spot where you don't expect to lose someone
Yeah,
on the ice.
I mean, I've seen some close calls, and you always think about how lucky some of these guys are when they take an awkward hit, or hell, I mean, my elbow pad strategy saved me a couple times. I'm not going to dig it out, but one of my high school jerseys has a little cut in the wrist area of, if I didn't have my elbow pad, would have gotten me. And so you do what you can to make sure it doesn't happen again, and the NHL needs to realize that.
Absolutely. Speaking of NHL, obviously the season just started a few weeks ago. Obviously them and the NBA started about the same time. And Dylan, just obviously, I know we're only a few weeks into the season, but kind of, what is your reaction so far to what we're seeing across the league? And are there any teams that are surprising you so far? Any teams that are disappointing? And also, how do you feel about your Capitals so far?
Well, we'll start with the Capitals. That sucks. Very painful to watch. We haven't won a playoff series since we won the Cup in 2018. Ovechkin's slowing down. He's only scored like 2 goals this season so far. Nicholas Backstrom just announced he's stepping away from the game because of recurring injuries, which I think that's just player PR slang for he's done. If he's he's in his mid-30s at this point, and if he has a physical injury like that that's been bothering him for years, he's done. They just don't want to officially say it yet. We're one of the oldest teams in the league, and it shows. Now, Jason, you're saying it in the comments. Connor Bedard is a lot of fun to watch. I got to check how Chicago's doing right now. I'm pretty sure they're not too hot. Yeah, they're last in the Central Division, but he's bringing a life back to the team that I haven't seen since the Blackhawks were on that phenomenal run all those years ago. Now, it didn't win them Stanley Cups every year, but people are paying attention, and people are excited about the Blackhawks because they have what people are calling the next Sidney Crosby on their team. And what's not to love about that?
Yeah, but meanwhile, though, for my Nashville Predators, though, we're just one spot above Chicago, and I don't know if they have much to be excited about right now.
It's obviously hard. I'm looking at your past couple games. Another thing that's surprising me is the fact that you guys beat the Oilers, who are surprisingly bad this year, which I feel horrible for Connor McDavid because he was hyped up as the next Wayne Gretzky when he got drafted, which, first of all, is just a massive thing to live up to because no one is Gretzky. But he's doing his best. But when you're on a team that's not doing too great, you start to kind of realize that maybe you aren't that guy, and all those fans that are cheering you on are being turned off by it. And it probably starts to make you mad about where you are and express interest in possibly leaving. I don't know what's going on in McDavid's head, but it's easy to assume he's probably not very happy in Edmonton right now.
And I think, the teams for me, the Oilers and the Maple Leafs. I mean, those two, they just have such passionate fan bases. They have so much pressure being Canadian teams. And we're nearing, 30 years now since the Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm. Last I want to say it was 93,
right, with Montreal?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I wonder which streak's gonna end first. Canadian winning the Stanley Cup final, or the Dallas Cowboys getting to the NFC Championship.
And we all joke that the Toronto Maple Leafs are basically the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL. One of the largest fan bases in the entire league, and they're always saying it's their year. They have the roster to do it, but something just always interferes in their success. And it's cool that they won their first playoff series in God knows how long, only just get demolished by Florida. But they've made progress, which is nice. But the fans need to realize that it's a build. The Stanley Cup's one of the hardest trophies to win in all of professional sports. And you're not going to wake up one day and it's just going to fall into your lap.
I think I think the team though early on that's surprising is Vancouver. I mean,
oh yeah, they're a lot of fun to watch. And you got I lose track of which Hughes kid is where, but they're absolute blast to watch. Second in the Pacific Division, I'm seeing. I think I've read that they have scored, or even all of. I just had a blank moment, but in one of the weakest divisions in all of the NHL, they're really sticking out. Them and Vegas are showing that the Pacific shouldn't be slept on.
Absolutely. And hey, poor San Jose, the Sharks. Only 12 goals scored in 11 games, 55 given up, negative 43 goal differential. So I don't know if I've ever seen anything that bad before.
I saw a stat the other day where
they haven't won a game. I think they're the only team in NHL right now that have not won a game.
Yeah, this is true. The other day they lost 10-1 to the Canucks and 10-2 to Pittsburgh. I was reading a stat that the last time a team lost back-to-back games and got 10 goals scored on them was, I want to say, the Bruins in 1965. I can't remember which. They were on the losing side of it, which was wild because Boston was an absolute powerhouse in the 60s. But that was back when scoring all those goals was common, so I guess people didn't really bat an eye. But with how much the league's changing, if you can put up 5 goals against a team, that's impressive, let alone 10. And you know it's bad when back-to-back games you get 10 put on you. Now, Pittsburgh putting up 10, the Metro Division is, again, I'm going to try to stay unbiased, easily the toughest division in all of the NHL. And you have that's the Atlantic one. Okay, you basically have some of the most historical teams in the entire NHL. New York's in first, Carolina's in second, New Jersey's in third. They're playing Colorado right now. Right now it's a commercial break, so I can't tell you what the score is. But it's always exciting to watch the Metro Division, what they do. And if you are a weak team in the league and you're playing a team from the Metro, it's going to show either how overconfident they can get or just how truly weak you are. Because either the better team gets in their head, think it's going to be a cupcake game and end up choking, or they just do what they do best and dominate.
Yeah, and I guess my question on San Jose is how in the world are they that bad? Because they used to be pretty competitive year in, year out. I guess they lost everybody, and are they basically having like an AHL level roster right now? Like, I mean, how is it possible to be that bad?
All right, I'm looking at their roster right now. I can name 1, 2. I can only name 3 of their players right now looking at it. And I guess it's just rotten luck. I mean, I think 12 games is the longest losing streak in NHL history to start off a season. I want to say the Rangers went on a 10-game losing streak sometime in the 90s to start off that season. But 12, it's rough. I don't know if it's intentional because of the whole last year we had the tank for Bedard memes coming out of Chicago. To be honest, I think it's just San Jose sucks.
I mean,
And
are there
that's the
any
best
teams
way to put it.
are there any players to tank for this year like Bedard?
Not that I know of, because it's not every year you get someone as hyped and talented as Bedard. I think the last guy that I remember people talking about for a while was McDavid, because I vividly remember sitting in a restaurant watching footage of him playing for, I think it was the Erie Otters was his team before the NHL, and hearing that this kid's going to be special and to look out for him in the future. Austin Matthews, I heard about a little before, how he grew up in Arizona, notoriously not hockey state, ended up getting good, played in Europe for a while or something, and is one of the most successful players. I kind of hate to say it, not his biggest fan. And then we get to Bedard, who past year and a half, 2 years, we've been hearing about, and he's bringing that life in. But for this year, I don't really know who might be the first overall pick that San Jose may or may not be tanking for.
Right. But hey, the Sharks, though, shout out, they just took a lead on the Flyers, 1-0. So.
Oh, how about that? Good for them.
Yeah. And
it's
Seattle
early in the first period.
Seattle and Arizona also tied 2 apiece. I'm watching the game as well.
Yeah.
So
shout out Nashville. We are up 2-1 on Calgary in the second
excellent
intermission.
to hear.
So
Who else we got? Penguins are up 1-0 against the Ducks at the end of the first. And we've covered basically every game going on. I watched a little bit of Rangers Red Wings. I got my Gretzky sweater on, so repping them for the night. Jets beat the Blues 5-2. Wild beat the Islanders 4-2. Hurricanes went into overtime against the Sabres, pulled out with a 3-2 victory. And Tampa beat Montreal 5-3. So it's a lot of fun that hockey's back, because I can just watch any game. I'd rather watch my Capitals, but because watching them makes me depressed, I'm okay with watching someone else.
I understand that. You know, there's times where I don't want to watch my own teams either. And also, I just want to shout out the NHL in general. I feel like they're doing a great job of advertising, because it seems like I'm very aware of when every national game is. Like now with HBO Max, the TNT putting those games on that, like the NHL is on national TV. It feels like every night, and it's great for the sport.
yeah, that's something they really did a 180, because I remember 5 years ago we never found NHL games, and now, as you describe, they're everywhere in America.
It's a lot of fun to watch. I have a lot of friends texting me who they should root for and who this guy is, if they should get his jersey, because it's a lot easier to access the sport now and be able to watch it. And come watch the sport. And I remember back in middle school, high school, I used to get made fun of for liking hockey. But when the Caps won the cup, people started paying attention and started asking me all of these questions. I was happy to oblige them, because it is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you got that right. I remember in Tennessee when the Preds made their run back in 2017 to the Stanley Cup Finals. It was great to see all the people down here get into hockey and learn, because most people down here don't know the rules.
We talked about years ago on Rock Solid Sports how hockey can work in the South, and we agreed that the cup run, or failed cup run, I hate to say it, what was a start. And one thing we mentioned was the possibility of an outdoor game for the Predators somewhere in Tennessee. We brought up Neyland as the idea just because they can't pull off an outdoor game at Neyland, but it'd be absolutely awesome to see. I don't think we ever talked about the success of the outdoor game at Nissan Stadium last time I was on, but people showed showed up, had a blast, and just continued to support the Predators. Nashville is a fun town. I'm finally at legal age where I can enjoy it for its purpose. So people having a couple beverages, talking about hockey, going into the game, having fun. Bring more of that to whichever team you support.
Yeah.
And speaking of hockey in Tennessee, interesting that Branch Clark has resigned as the head coach of the Ice Bears. Like, I didn't expect the Ice Bears to make a change in the middle of the season. Like,
their season started, I want to say, like 2 weeks ago. I think they're 0-7 at this point. I was actually just texting with Chloe a little earlier about it, and they were supposed to start Ice Bears Wednesday this week, and she's not sure what they're going to do because we always brought in the head coach.
Yeah.
There's no head coach.
Yeah, I remember we always had the head coach. I forgot his name, but
Jeff Carr.
Jeff Carr. Yeah, I even remember. Oh, such a good dude. I remember even interviewing him in the locker room after games, and that's sad that the Ice Bears start 0-6. Like, and last year was such a good run into the postseason, going all the way, I believe, in the I think all the way to the President's Cup, and now starting.
2 years ago they made it to the semifinals. Last year I think they got eliminated. Yeah, they got eliminated in the first round. The first 2 games were on the road, so I didn't get to see. No, I was there actually. A lot of the Ice Bears games kind of just started to blend together. It's been so long since I've been to one.
Yeah.
I was at the eliminator game. It was sad to watch because people care. I know Nashville is 3 hours away, so hockey fans have to take what they can get. And the Facebook group, it's a little frustrating because the fans are blaming the wrong things, and sometimes they're even saying stuff that doesn't even happen in hockey. Knoxville isn't known for hockey, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. One of the reasons we kind of tried to bring awareness to the Ice Bears on Rock Solid Sports was because hockey is fun. I'm happy to explain everything to anyone in a way everyone can understand it.
Yeah, I remember covering so many Ice Bears games, and definitely was a great environment, great memories, definitely. I'll always remember that, definitely.
Yeah, and hopefully they can turn it around soon. And also just looking at the table there, the Birmingham Bulls, never heard of them. Are they a new team? They must be a new team.
They've been around.
Yeah, they've been around. I remember, from what I can see, there's no new teams. Only one team left from last season.
Because I remember that.
Yeah.
Danville,
I think it was... no, Fayetteville is still around. It was Vermilion County.
Yeah, Vermilion County. Vermilion County.
They were kind of in... Well, no, Colorado, I think, just tied it. But they were in a worse predicament than the Ice Bears, where their arena... I've seen pictures. I've played in better arenas than that. And it's a disgrace that you'd have a professional team playing in that poor conditions. I don't know the full details. We tried to talk to Coach Clark about it. He couldn't tell us much either, if I remember correctly. But they just basically gave up, said we're not doing this anymore. I think by Christmas, they'd only won 4 games. I hope Knoxville doesn't end up that bad, but we'll only have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. Before we end hockey, I do want to ask, who is your pick to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup here in a
let me pull up the rankings and see if there's anyone that I might think would be a sleeper. I can already say it's safe to say Washington's probably not doing it. I put money down on them every year, and every year my wallet's a little bit emptier. I wanted to say Edmonton at the start of the season, but they're not doing too great. All these top teams, I have a hard time picking the number one in each division because we all saw what happened last year when Boston was the most successful team in the regular season. They just absolutely choked. It was hilarious. I'm feeling good about Los Angeles. They're decent, but not over the top that it might go to their heads. And I feel like LA is due for another championship. They've won it in sometime in the early 2010s. Them and Chicago went back and forth for a while. It was a lot of fun. And I think LA's due for a decent run this year in the West. Now for the East, I'm going to go Metropolitan. I think a rematch between the Rangers and the Kings would be a lot of fun. 2012, I remember now. That was one of my most memorable moments watching the Stanley Cup because I think it was like a week after the Kings celebrated. I was in New York, and they had all of their, or the Rangers had all of their Eastern Conference champion stuff discounted because they were that frustrated with not going all the way. And so I think my final pick, rematch of 2012 Kings Rangers, with LA going on top again.
That's a good pick, and I know the ratings for that would be bonkers, for sure. As someone who is definitely not a hockey expert, I'm just going to throw some shots out in the dark. I know they're leading the East, and they had such a horrific end of their season last year. This feels like revenge time for Boston.
Oh, yeah.
It's revenge time for the Bruins. They got to... Like I was talking about earlier with Purdue, with Farley Dickinson, they've got a ton to prove. Boston has a lot to prove. I mean, you can't lose a Game 7 at home to freaking Florida and then not come back the next year. I think they are going to come out of the East. I'll take them over. Let's get crazy. How about the Devils in the finals?
My Stanley Cup final is going to be Vancouver Canucks and New York Rangers, and the Rangers win the cup.
Oh, that'd be a fun one.
I'm going to be honest.
I just thought of another fun one. Canucks Devils, because you got the Battle of the Hughes brothers.
What about the whiteout in Winnipeg?
Oh, that'd be a good one too.
Winnipeg Bruins, and with the Bruins winning it all.
See, I notice every time we talk about this, we come up with one serious and mildly intelligent answer, and then it just deviates into, hey, this scenario seems a lot of fun. What if we did this?
Yeah. I honestly, though, Predators versus Senators.
Why not?
Yeah. Man. But anyway, yeah. So I'll be curious to see where the predictions, how they age throughout the year.
All right. So I'm sticking with my Kings Rangers. You guys sticking with your picks?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
All right. We'll see what happens with all of those by the end of May, start of June.
Oh, yeah. When it's time to fight for the Lord Stanley's Cup. All right. I want to move over into college football, and I do want to ask you about that Vols-UConn game on Saturday, because obviously it wasn't close. It was never a contest. Vols destroyed UConn for Pat Summitt 59-3. As I went to Neyland with Jason. Of course, you were in the crowd too. Just kind of what was just your takeaway from that game? For me, obviously, Tennessee was just by far the better team, and it was nice for us to fully dominate an opponent from start to finish without problem.
Yeah, a lot of these homecoming cupcake games are just that. They bring in a team that it's going to be an easy win. It's going to be a blowout. Um, I don't want to say I was bored because obviously I want the Vols to win. And on one hand,
But
what's up,
but I
Gus?
but I feel like it meant something. I felt like the Vols picked the perfect opponent for a
Oh
homecoming
yeah,
game because
they're
it was a cupcake game, but it was a university that it had a rivalry in another sport, so it made the fans kind of fiery.
Absolutely, and I think that the teams too, like UConn came out and just acted like a bunch of punks the entire game. Like they were coming out and like warming up on our side of the field. They were, um, you know, they were just being like weird the entire game. And then Jim Moore after the game doesn't go and like properly shake Josh Heupel's hand. He just gives him a slight shake, walks off, and then basically whines afterwards that they weren't treated fairly. I'm like, well, what were you expecting? You were 1-8 at going up against a top 20 SEC team, man. Like I don't know what else you were expecting from this game. Like you don't have the talent to compete with a top end team. And it's not even like Tennessee is as good as they were last year.
No, and also Tennessee had to make a big statement because, like last game, that Tennessee had an easier opponent. The fans didn't like as much. Do you remember that Austin P game? It make fans a little uncomfortable, so they had to get rid of the bad taste out of that game.
Oh, absolutely, and it just goes to show how far we've come from that game. Because I mean, Tennessee was not firing at all in that game, but Tennessee was definitely firing here. With being able to run for long yards. Gracio Milton had a couple of good first, and then obviously, I think the most exciting part of the game, outside of the 3 defensive touchdowns, which by the way is the first time the Vols did that in 25 years, was Nico coming on. Nealon went nuts, and I mean, it was electric when Nico walked on the field.
before my technical difficulties decide to interrupt me. Um, I always like a spicy football game with a lot of drama, but with big wins like that, gives you time to experiment and have a little fun. Obviously, Hypo put in Nico just to see how capable he is in an environment like Neyland, because the best way to see how good a player is isn't in practice. Throw him in the exact environment he's going to be facing if you decide to make him the guy. And sure, it was a cupcake game, but Neyland Loud is Neyland Loud. It's very distracting for some people. So just to see kind of how a player can react to the stressful environments is a good test.
And you can tell he still has, I think, some comfortability in the pocket that he really needs to develop because he had a bit of happy feet. But he's a true freshman. You expect that. But
Yeah.
he stood in there and he delivered some good throws. He obviously had a really explosive run. He's super fast.
Oh, it
In
is
person.
amazing how fast he is.
Yeah.
And the kind of thing that shows me how special he's going to be in the future. His jersey is on sale at the Vol Shop already. And obviously, NIL deals weren't a thing when I think, yeah, they started I guess would have been my senior year. I was able to get a Hendon Hooker jersey. Maybe it was my junior year. But you didn't have Joe Milton jerseys for sale when Hendon Hooker was the guy. So the fact that you have the backup, the secondary, the future, his jerseys hanging up in the store shows he's going to be a big deal when his time comes.
Yeah, I went to Alumni Hall at Turkey Creek on my way back to Chattanooga Saturday, and it's just crazy, like all the players' names. It's awesome for them to be able to have all that. And all the basketball players. And of course, Dalton Necht, I'm sure when they make his jerseys, he's going to be going through the roof, especially if he keeps on playing the way he has. Yeah, it's obviously turning the page from that. Falls have a huge one. Of course, the Falls were number 13 tonight in the CFP, going to number 14 in the CFP, Missouri. And of course, there's kind of a caveat to this game. If Tennessee wins this game, then on Saturday night, we have to root for our old arch nemesis in Lane Kiffin to take out Georgia and Athens. Because if that happens, if those two things happen, the next week in Neyland, Georgia Tennessee's for the SEC East. What are the odds that both of these happen?
They're possible. I remember last year we were getting all those milestones leading up to Alabama where our odds kept looking better and better. I don't think Ole Miss is capable of beating Georgia, but I think we're capable of beating Missouri. We're so closely ranked. We have the same win-loss record. So let me actually look at the percentages on ESPN. Yeah, Tennessee has a 60.5% chance of winning on the road, which is a big deal. We'll kind of see how that goes. But with Ole Miss and Georgia, I doubt that's going to happen. Georgia has been an absolute powerhouse for the past 2-3 years. But we've noticed that they're starting to miss those pieces. Those cracks are starting to show. So it's not a matter of if someone can beat Georgia. It's going to be when someone beats Georgia. And with the home field advantage factor for the Vols, there's a chance we could do it. This will be that game. Every year the Vols have that one game that everyone talks about. I think this year the Georgia game will be that. Win or loss, obviously we want to win, but it will be Neyland at its loudest.
Well, see, I would argue that, because obviously for most of the last 15 years, it's been, unfortunately, on the negative side, that, if we don't beat Georgia next week, then Florida will be that game of, man, what could the season have been, right? Because, here's the thing. If we don't blow it against a below-average Florida team that just lost to a 2-1 Arkansas team back in week 3, we don't have to rely on Ole Miss Saturday night, which I agree with Aaron Young. Thank you so much for watching. 2 Countries, 2 Americas, all sports, by the way. He says our chances are very low, and if Ole Miss was playing at home, you'd have a better chance, no doubt. I agree with him on both counts. Ole Miss, I don't see them winning a road game in Athens.
No.
So in a way, to me, it takes a little bit of the pressure off the Tennessee Mizzou game because I'm not that worried about the East because, frankly, we blew our chance. So you should, if you want to win SC East, you can't lose to Sun Belt Billy. Mm-hmm. You just can't. And unfortunately, we did. And that's the one thing we knew heading into the season we had to avoid was that bad loss on the road, like we did last year with South Carolina. And unfortunately, it happened again. It just happened to us early. But at least the good thing about it happening early this year is we've seen how the team has been able to respond from that, and they've responded pretty well. Where they have, since that moment, they have gone 5-1, with the one loss being at a resurgent Alabama team, who is showing why, maybe we shouldn't have put dirt on their grave yet, because they're not dead yet.
Yeah.
They just won't go away.
I think in terms of a national championship, their only chance of getting to the playoffs is win at all and getting to the SEC championship and beating Georgia.
Yeah, and it's going to depend on what else happens. Okay, before we get to that, well, actually, I guess I can stick on this. So for Bama right now, they didn't move up after their win. They're still at 8. The problem for Bama is that Texas lost because Texas is right in front of them at 7. If Texas wins out, which I think they have a very good shot of doing, their last couple of games, I know they have at Iowa State, they have Texas, Tech, TCU, games they're all going to be favored in. And then the Big 12 title game, who knows who's going to be there? Oklahoma has crapped the bed. They may not see the Sooners again. They might see Oklahoma State or Kansas State again. As long as they can get Quinn Ewers back, which I think they will by the end of the year. Although Blake Murphy hasn't been awful. He's doing enough to win these games without Quinn Ewers. Texas might finish 12-1. And even if Bama beats Georgia in the SEC title game, you can't put Bama in front of Texas.
No.
Because Texas beat them fair and square.
Well, clearly
on the road.
Looking at the rankings last year, stuff like that can happen.
Yeah,
I'm still mad
Bama
about that.
was put in front of us. Now, granted, it wasn't.
Stupid.
It was for 5 and 6. Now, if it was for 4 and 5, I don't know if that happens. I hope it wouldn't have happened at 4 and 5, but we may never. We won't know because it's a different one. Because I think the theory was we were getting punished for Hendon Hooker getting hurt, which is insane. The idea of getting punished for an injury because you should be rewarded for what you did. But just because Quinn Ewers is hurt right now doesn't make Texas's win in week 2 against Bama any less impressive.
No.
That was Texas's team at the time. And then in front of them, so the top 6 right now. So you have it didn't change at all this week. You have Ohio State 1, which I think is crazy. I mean, they didn't look great at Rutgers. Now, Rutgers is a decent team, but still, Ohio State shouldn't be trailing Rutgers at halftime. You got Georgia still at 2. You have Michigan at 3, which is just irate. And it's not because of the whole cheating thing. I don't, clearly, yes. Did they cheat? Yes. But what I will say is they shouldn't be ahead of Florida State, who has wins over LSU, who I think overall for the course of the season has just played tougher competition. And then Washington being at 5 is asinine. Washington has one of the best wins in all of football this year with the Oregon win. Now, Texas has the best win overall with that win at Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
But literally, Washington is really right above Oregon at 6. And Aaron says Texas should be above Oregon. And I don't know. But here's the thing. Texas's loss is looking worse and worse every week. Because Oklahoma, ever since the Texas game, should have lost to UCF. Loses at Kansas, loses at Oklahoma State. An Oklahoma State team that we must remember was blown out at home by South Alabama 33-7. That loss isn't good for Texas. At the time it was, okay, they're going to get a chance to avenge that, but you're not going to get a chance to avenge that with OU falling apart. And it's kind of a stain. It's like Tennessee's lost to Florida. That loss is a stain on the season because Florida isn't that good. But, that's college football. Results like that happen. And I think I'm fine with Oregon above Texas for that reason. And honestly, if it was a neutral field, I'm taking Oregon over Texas. I think it would be a close game, but I would take Oregon. Now, coaching-wise, though, would be where I'd be concerned because Dan Lannon can be kind of crazy. And frankly, Dan Lannon is the reason why Oregon has a loss because he coached a really horrifically bad game at Washington. He was going for 4th downs left and right, and he put his team in an awful position. If he just coaches a conventional game, they win by 2 scores. And I think if Washington and Oregon meet back up in the not national title, in the Pac-12 championship, which I think they will, Oregon is going to win that rematch.
I think that's a reasonable statement. Obviously, with the Pac-12 going under, a lot of these teams are trying to go out with a bang to be crowned the last Pac-12 champion. And Oregon, Washington, it's going to be a fun rematch if that's what we end up facing.
Oh, absolutely.
Branching off of that, how are you guys feeling about? Can we call Colorado a flop?
I won't. Expected.
I wouldn't say a flop. I feel like a lot of people wanted to hype up Colorado because they want to make Deion Sanders interesting and they want to make it a feel-good story and drive up ratings because clearly Deion Sanders is an attraction in football, especially in college football.
Yeah.
But we all knew before the TCU game that Colorado was going to be an average program at best. But the deceiving game was TCU. But definitely that TCU team was very different from the TCU team that played in January in the national championship. TCU lost a lot of players to the draft. So I
I'm
think
concerned about Deion Sanders' ability to lead a program at this point in
Yeah.
the juncture. So the thing that makes me say this, so obviously we saw what happened against Stanford. Blowing a 29-point lead to this Stanford team is unacceptable. It just is. They had no business losing that game, especially with his son selling merch at halftime.
Mhm.
Okay. Just a total lack of control. And then here's what else happened since that. So Sean Lewis was the offensive coordinator, has been the OC all year for Colorado. He came from Kent State as head coach. If you remember, they put up 22 on Georgia last year, and they were tied with them in the third quarter. The dude's a very good coach. And frankly, he's taken those strengths of this offense and really excelled at, highlighting what they can do. But a few weeks ago, Deion decided to demote him to co-offensive coordinator, bring up somebody else, Pat Shurmur, former Giants head coach, if that name rings a bell. He's now the OC in charge of calling plays. And the other night, they only ran the ball 19 times. And there's some people wondering, is Deion at this point just worried about stat padding for his son?
I think that is the case, and honestly, I'll take it a step further. A lot of guys on Colorado, Deion included, are more focused on promoting themselves than actually winning a football game and trying to be a solid team. All this media attention is going to everything that Colorado's doing, where Deion bought everyone sunglasses or something. Game day was there almost immediately at the start of the season, and then to be mediocre it's a start for Colorado. I'm not saying the Deion experiment's been a complete failure. They're doing a lot better than they were last year, but Colorado kind of needs to get their priorities straight. It's all about winning games and not trying to be all flashy and promoting yourself.
Exactly. You said it 100%. Football requires the most sacrifice because only one person can have the glory.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 11 players at a time to make one person look great.
And the best example I'll give of this is I'm going to try to keep my cool because I obviously have strong feelings for Arizona State with my brother going there. Arizona State's one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. They are second to last, 1-5. Same with Washington State, and Colorado beat them only by 3 points, which is kind of embarrassing when you beat one of the worst teams in college football by only a field goal.
no. How about Colorado State game? They went to overtime, and Colorado State also is not a powerhouse.
Well, that was another one of those things ended up working out correctly for them. I didn't watch the end of that game most because I didn't want to be up until what time did it end? Like 2:15.
And at 2 a.m. because I think I'd fallen asleep on that game, but I woke back up and watched the end.
Yeah,
which happened to me with the Stanford game too.
It's rough, and Colorado can't keep squeaking by with these last-second miracle wins.
Yeah, so Aaron Young, he says, the difference is this, in my opinion. Deion has always been flashy, but we all knew when he stepped on the field, he was locked in and would dominate. His players have gotten too caught up in the prime time flash and don't have that same ability to turn off the flash and get down to business.
Yeah, that's my logic. They're all too focused on trying to be the next Deion Sanders. It should be more do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, and you just have to wonder what type of player you're going to attract. Because remember, they're going over to the Big 12, where I think the flashiness isn't going to be as accepted as it is in the Pac-12. It's just a different culture in the Pac-12. You're going to places like Ames, Iowa, and Manhattan, Kansas. I mean, you're going to have more grit. They're going to have more toughness.
And another thing to discuss is a lot of people are saying to Shedeur Sanders go to the draft. I don't know. Do you think he's going to declare for the draft?
I mean, I don't know if I would in this class. Shador would not be anywhere close to a Caleb Williams, a Drake May. Yeah. I think that maybe I would wait another year.
Yeah, I would definitely wait
Yeah.
another year for sure.
I
Yeah.
I agree he should wait it out, but I think there is a chance he might use that inflated ego of his to declare for the draft just to see where he ends up. But like we've been saying, it's all about that trying to be flashy Mr. Colorado and not actually trying to win a game.
And this is the thing, Travis Hunter should be the player that Colorado is trying to glorify here. Like, he is the superstar of this team, and he's going to be, I think, the superstar in the NFL. But I think, as we've been pointing out, the conversation over Shador is so intense that it's overshadowing Travis, and I think Travis by far is the better player.
Yeah, and one of the things that I liked about Tennessee, we all knew Hendon Hooker was the superstar, but he promoted everyone else around him. Sure, there was that whole conspiracy theory about our guys threw the South Carolina game because they were mad about all the attention that Hendon was getting. I personally don't believe that. But the point is, you're on a team, you're going to have your superstars, but it's up to the superstars to promote the guys that they also believe in. That core of talent is very important to how a team meshes together. And if the core doesn't support each other, then the entire team falls apart.
Well, speaking of teams, I guess not falling apart or maybe they're falling apart. I don't know, but Shane Beamer, one of our favorite targets here on the Two Countries to America's All Sports podcast. So his team barely beat Jacksonville State the other night, 38-28. And let's just say he had some interesting comments after the game on Saturday, after barely beating a team that just moved up to the FBS. He said, quote, "We were not good enough to win in a lot of areas today, but we're going to celebrate the heck out of that game. We just had one heck of a celebration in that locker room." And then he went on to say today, quote, "If we won on a beautiful Saturday afternoon and you were unhappy and miserable, then you probably do need to find some joy and celebrate wins a little bit more as well." Shane, this is the SEC, buddy. No one is celebrating a win over Jacksonville State.
No.
Like, this is obvious. I mean, this reminds me of Butch Jones so much. Like how he would try to, say, "Oh, this is the." Well, I remember when Florida won SC East in 2016 after beating LSU, and Butch was like, "Oh, well, we're the champions of life. These kids, they've grown a lot, and they've got 5-star hearts." And that's the type of thing that's going to get you ran out of town. You got to own it. Like, your team has sucked this year. You're 3-6. You're likely not making a bowl game. Because they got. Go ahead.
I appreciate the whole. I think the best way to explain it, and I'll put it in Tennessee terms again. Treat every game like Alabama. You got to bring that energy. Treat it like it's a big game. But at the end of the day, regardless of if it was an actual big-time opponent that you play on primetime television or a school that most people don't even know exists, that's when you kind of level out how hard you should celebrate. Jacksonville State is nobody. No offense to if anyone listening.
Hey, they're doing good. They're 7-2 this year, and this is their first year in FBS. They're doing good. If the NCAA didn't have such an archaic rule, and we should talk about this, NCAA's archaic rule against new FBS teams, they would be in a bowl game. So
Oh yeah.
shout out Rich Rodriguez.
But it's they're a developing team, and so kind of over celebrating against them is stupid and makes you look bad.
Oh, absolutely. But this is Shane Beamer.
Yeah.
He's probably going to want the fans to rush the field after they beat Vanderbilt in a couple of weeks, too. So, because they won't be, I don't think they're going to beat Kentucky, and I don't think they're going to beat Clemson. And speaking of Clemson, they finally won a big game this year. They beat Notre Dame the other day, but they rushed the field again. It's just the dumbest tradition in all sports.
Yeah, the whole what do they call it instead of rushing the field?
Meeting at the paw.
Yeah, it's how come they're allowed to do it and not really face consequences, but I'd like to emphasize that Tennessee last year was mostly the only justified field rush. Clemson does it all the time. Nobody bats an eye. Someone else does it. Everyone loses their minds about it. I just don't get it.
It's all double standards.
Yep. But yeah, it's solid win against, especially the fact that Clemson unranked and Notre Dame is at 15. Sure, it's not a top 10 school, but beating a team in the top 25 while you're unranked, it's an accomplishment. It's not like beating someone in the top 10, top 5, any of the important sections of the AP poll, but it's a good look for you.
Absolutely. So, Gus, we can't hear you. Well, I think while he gets his audio figured out.
Can you guys hear me now?
There we
Yes,
go.
yes, there we go.
And I was gonna say, in terms of this Clemson situation, I feel like it's not about fans rushing the field or not. I feel like it's more about, if if this was like 3 years ago, maybe they wouldn't rush the field because they expect to beat top 15 team. But it show how maybe this program kind of, downgraded the expectations a little bit.
Well, I mean, they even rushed the field after losses. Like, this is a tradition. They rushed the field after South Carolina last year. Yeah, Gamecock fans dancing on the paw.
Why? Rushing the field is one of those once in a lifetime, once in a 4 years in college type thing where you save it for those important wins. Nick, was there ever a field rushing in your time at Tennessee or no?
No.
Kind of a stupid question now that I think about it.
Georgia State might have done a reverse field rush if that
counts. I guess. And my junior year, we had the Ole Miss game, which that was an emotional night, and we overreacted emotionally. Granted, it was one of the worst things I've ever seen, but it's one of those reactions that costs our athletic department money, so it shows that Vol fans care. And with the Alabama game last year, I bring it up all the time. Until I have a kid or get married or anything like that, nothing in my life will ever top that. And it's one of those moments that people are going to be talked about forever. Everyone who cares about Tennessee is going to remember the date, October 15th, 2022, and probably feel the same way that I am about it all. And that's because it's probably going to be a while. And unless we beat Georgia this year, we're not seeing a field rush this year. I don't know what next year's schedule looks like, but who's to say? Maybe we'll see another one sometime this year if we manage to pull off that miracle. Maybe we'll do it again next year. I can't really look at the future on all that because the entire culture of rushing the field is honestly odd because we talked about rushing the field if we beat Ole Miss 2 years ago. We did the opposite. There were rumors that we were going to rush the field after we beat Florida last year, and I don't know why we didn't. We just decided not to. And then when you beat Bama, you do it. It's like I said, you get one.
Question:
Clemson is abusing it.
Do you think Missouri fans are gonna rush the field if they beat the Vols?
No, I doubt it. They
I'd
rushed the
like to
field for
think
K-State.
no.
I mean, they rush when they beat Kansas State.
That's a historic rival for Missouri. Because
Yeah.
that goes back to the Big 8, the Big 12. So that was kind of understandable,
hmm
honestly, for why they would have rushed the field for that. Tennessee is not a rival.
And I'll hate talking about it. I'll give South Carolina credit last year. We were number 1 ranked in the country, and they beat the crap out of us. That is a field rushing game, as depressing as it was.
I was there. Like yesterday, I was at a Joji concert in Atlanta, and
Oh, nice.
They started playing a sandstorm and like one of the pre-DJ sets, and I'm
Oh.
just like, and there's at one point too because I was in Atlanta, so all the people were barking at one point. I'm just like, oh no.
All those stupid game day traditions. I hate everyone's but ours.
Pretty much, yeah. Speaking of Tennessee and Mizzou, well, let's kind of get into some game picks here. First and foremost, upset alert. Who is on upset alert? For me, I'm going to go with kind of a team we just talked about here. Give me Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets, to go on the road into Death Valley and beat Clemson.
I'm looking at the top 25, and I'm kind of excited at this Texas TCU matchup. I doubt TCU's gonna pull off an upset over 8-1 Texas, but that's gonna be one I'm definitely gonna be paying attention to. Now, upset alert. I think I'm gonna go USC over Oregon. That's one of my favorite Pac-12 matchups. It's very competitive every year. Obviously, Oregon's 8-1, USC is 7-3, and they just had a depressing loss to where they were talking about wanting to go home, cuddle their dogs. Actual quote interview. I think USC is going to be out for revenge after the misery that was last week, and Oregon's in their way. So let's see what happens.
Gosh, do you have a pick?
It was Caleb Williams that talked about petting his dog. There we go. I can't believe I forgot his name.
My upset alert. Give me Florida to beat LSU in Baton Rouge.
Ooh, Brian Kelly will be feeling some heat for sure. And I forgot to mention too.
I mean, just saying. Last week I picked the right upset. Just saying.
Yep. I mean, you've been on a roll recently too. You picked Kansas over OU as well.
Oh, nice.
2 weeks ago. So he has been on an absolute roll. And also, I forgot to mention this too. I can't believe USC finally fired Alex Grinch as their DC, which was well deserved.
I did see that.
I mean, USC's defense has just been awful ever since Lincoln Riley got there. And this is the problem with Lincoln Riley. And honestly, I don't know how much of this, is Alex Grinch's fault. Like, I don't think Lincoln Riley as a coach values defense enough. I think, the difference between someone like him and Heupel, I think clearly with Tim Banks, we're trying to have a much better defense. We're still not completely there, but we're trying. USC just isn't trying. I mean, you saw the other night, that Washington USC game was just an absolute track meet, up and down, up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But he needs to get his defense right because he's going to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten has harder defenses than the Pac-12.
And he isn't going to have Caleb Williams saving him next year either.
Yeah.
So, and in terms of an underrated matchup this week, again, flying under the radar, I think, honestly, this Rutgers-Iowa game is interesting. Just because, who can anyone score? I mean, Iowa-Northwestern was a game that belonged to the 1950s. Belonged to
it was 0-0 at halftime. 0-0.
Yeah, but it's a game that's very important and could decide the Big Ten West. So A big game there for Rutgers and Iowa.
For me, my underrated game is the Oregon rivalry on Friday night of all days. It's gonna. I know that's later. Sorry, I got mixed up. So my underrated game of the week, for me is, mm, I'll say probably Florida State and Miami. I think if Mario Cristobal can get close. I mean, I don't I don't think he's gonna win, but I think he's gonna make it close.
So, also speaking of rivalries, too, Duke, North Carolina in football this weekend. Duke's had a very decent season. It's kind of come off the rails recently, but I mean, UNC has also come off the rails too. I think whoever loses that game this season will be just an insane disappointment.
Yep, and you bring it up. Duke and North Carolina was going to be my pick for kind of an underrated game. Obviously, I remember vividly Maryland being in the ACC. That was games against Duke and North Carolina, always fun to watch. What was always more fun, in my opinion, is watching them pit against each other because I would always just boo both teams regardless of what happened because we hated them that much back in the day. And it's not the same now that Maryland's gone, but that's always one I look out for every year.
Oh, absolutely. Um, all right, so let's get into some picks here. Our top 5 games of the week. First of all, you mentioned that Miami Florida State game, Gus. Does Miami Mario Cristobal, who has been a maligned coach all season, do they have any chance to knock off the Seminoles, who themselves they kind of struggled against Pittsburgh last week?
I I feel like it would have been a really nice story, but I don't. I think it's gonna be close, but I think Florida State still get the job done.
Yeah, and all these Florida games are always a big deal to the people of that state. Miami, fan, 6-3 isn't great, but Florida State is going to be a big hurdle for them just to see how close they can get to beating them. If they pull off the win, that'd be absolutely cool to see for them. But I think Florida State's still going to come out on top.
You know what? FSU, there just feels like there's something off. I feel like there's something off. Give me the U.
All
And
right,
an
all right.
upset. That might be a crazy pick. Okay. Utah traveling on the road to Washington. What do we think here?
Uh,
Uh,
and
Give me the
Pac-12.
Huskies. Give me the Huskies. I thought at some point I thought USC is gonna dominate the game, but they really showed some strength in the second half. Give me the Huskies.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Huskies as well on this. Pac-12 weak conference, but their powerhouses are definitely powerhouses, and they're going to show up.
I'm going to go with another upset. This could actually turn into a chaos week. Give me Utah. I think Washington just had a really emotional win on the road at USC, and I don't trust their defense right now.
All right, interesting.
All right. Also staying in that Northwest, USC, Oregon. I forget which one of you picked Oregon or USC to win. I think Dylan, you picked him.
Yep.
Gus, what do you think?
Mm, if if somehow Lincoln Riley found the competent DC to fix their defense, maybe, but still give me Oregon.
I'm gonna go Oregon. I think Oregon blows them out. I don't think this one will be close.
Like,
Uh,
do you know what's really disappointing? Like, it's year 2 for Lincoln Riley, and everybody wanted USC to be at that level of the top 4. And maybe that Utah loss at the Pac-12 championship, maybe that was probably the greatest chance for the Pac-12 for the California football, the college football, to be relevant again because USC is not showing signs they're rooting that getting back there.
oh, absolutely. Like I think they've got a long way to go, and the Pac-12 or the Big Ten rather is going to be a rude awakening. Oregon and Washington are in such a better position. Speaking of the Big Ten now, we got the Michigan Science Steelers heading to Penn State. Michigan finally plays a real game. Who wins?
So Michigan changed mascot.
Yes.
I love that. Michigan Steelers. I guess the Houston also should be in the Major League Majors, should be Houston Science Steelers.
Absolutely.
But
But
give me
honestly,
the Wolverines.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Michigan too, 9-0. Penn State being 8-1. Sure, it's a very small difference in win loss, and they're only 7 spots apart in the rankings. But it's Michigan; they're gonna pull the win. They've been dominant for so long. Sure, they're being exposed as to why they're so dominant, but it's towards the end of the year. There's not going to be enough time for the NCAA to do anything about it.
yeah, and plus James Franklin just can't win big games. It's just he just can't. He can't beat Ohio State. He can't beat Michigan. Give me Michigan. I guess this is a 2-part deal. So before we pick Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri. Tennessee has to win this game to keep the slim SEC East chance alive. Do the Vols win in Columbia? And what do they have to do to win in Columbia?
I think the Vols wins in Columbia, but I think they need to show that dominance, especially on offense. I not say beat by 56 points, but keep that flow, keep that really high strength offense.
I think one of the keys to the Vols pulling the win is the receivers being able to catch Milton's bazooka passes. He's got an absolute cannon, but his receivers aren't able to really get to him. And so I hope it's late enough in the season they're used to Milton being able to throw those long passes to the point they're actually able to catch them and get those long runs to get the touchdown. And hopefully it all works out for the Vols in the end.
I'll say this: the key stat here in the last 2 matchups against Mizzou, of course, we've scored 62 and 66 in the last 2 years on this team. We've ran for a combined 722 rushing yards. And Tennessee coming into this game running for over 250 yards a pop. If we can keep that going, I think we are in a great spot. And Mizzou has not scored over 40 once this year. I think the Vols will get it done, and Heupel will prove that he owns Eli Dorkwitz in the great state of Missouri. Give me 41-28 Tennessee. Now, if all of our results stand and we win, then the scene shifts to Athens. We have to hope and pray that Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss somehow become the first team to beat Georgia in 26 games. Any chance Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin help out the Vols Saturday night?
And they have to do it on the road.
At night. In the college game
in
day
Athens.
Game. Yes.
I don't see it happening. Sure, that's another one of those matchups where they're 7 spots difference in the rankings. There's only 1 difference in their win-loss record, but it's Georgia, absolute powerhouse. Someone's going to beat Georgia eventually. I don't think it's going to be Ole Miss.
I would agree. I don't trust their passing game enough.
I mean, Ole Miss in their recent history were able to do that. We're like probably like in 2015 against Bama, like something like that. Like
right.
They did. They
and
did.
Lane
like
Kiffin notoriously has been awful on the road. Like he got beat at Bama earlier this year. He lost badly on the road at LSU last year. I mean, think about this: the biggest one he has is LSU this year, and or you could argue Tulane are his 2 biggest wins at Ole Miss.
If Ole Miss wins this game, definitely Lane Kiffin is set. Like even if he probably And again, also Ole Miss is fighting to be in the SEC West. So it's not only a battle for the East; it's a battle for the West because both uh, both Ole Miss and Bama have one loss, right?
Well, Bama's loss is non-con, so Bama needs to lose twice,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
and their 2 games left are like, if I'm correct, it's Kentucky
Kentucky?
and Auburn. They're not losing both of them.
No.
So
No.
Bama's going to win the West. But I will say this: if Ole Miss wins this game and wins out, and if we have an 11-1 Ole Miss team that beat Georgia on the road, how much chaos does that throw into the playoffs?
Lots.
That's true because and also like if the bigger chaos is then Georgia loses to Bama, then will be a 2-loss Georgia, a 1-loss Bama, and a 1-loss Ole Miss getting in.
Okay, what about this scenario? This is probably the most unlikely scenario. Okay, so let's say Ole Miss beats Georgia, they win out. Then Georgia goes to Knox next week and loses again, and Tennessee goes to the SEC title game with 10-2, and then we get revenge on Alabama. So the SEC champion is 11-2 Tennessee, but the only 1-loss SEC team is 11-1 Ole Miss. What then?
Wow, that would have.
I mean, I don't know if anyone would even make it from the SEC at that point. I think there is a legitimate path here where the SEC gets left out.
And it's possible. And do you guys watch SEC Roll Call on YouTube?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the kind of jokes they've been rolling with for, I can't remember if it was this most recent episode or last week's, but just the likelihood of an SEC-less college playoff is on everyone's mind.
Right. Because here's the thing. If Oregon and Washington win out, whoever wins that is going to the Pac-12 title. If Florida State wins out, they're going to the playoff. If Texas wins out, they're going, I think, to the playoff. I think some Michigan or Ohio State will end up in the playoff.
Well, it depends on who wins that game.
Yeah. Like, those are 4 other potential teams. The SEC can't afford chaos. The only thing they can really afford is Georgia losing 1 regular season game to Ole Miss or Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they can really afford. Otherwise, any other catastrophic loss, I think, is it.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's true. Like Georgia is only in that scenario their guys playing. Only Georgia has a shot in the going to the semis representing the SEC, because even Bama, I know Nick Saban is gonna go on every television show and be, oh, we deserve to be in, but that again, that crap doesn't get in anymore. Like remember Nick Saban going on his TV crusade trying to be, we deserve to be in.
Well, they didn't even deserve to be number 5. They should have been number 6 behind a team that beat them.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But that's neither here or there. Yeah, so we all agreed that Georgia will have won the SC East by the end of Saturday night. But, hey, I mean, good God, could you imagine the opposite happening? Missouri wins, then Ole Miss wins. I think that would be the most brutal. That's probably the most brutal outcome. Like, if Mizzou beats us, I'm rooting for Georgia to win. Because I'd rather them be number 1.
Yeah, because if Missouri wins, then and Georgia wins, then we don't have to win for Missouri. Because if Missouri beats Tennessee, then Missouri needs Tennessee to beat Georgia.
Yes. Yeah, so crazy scenarios. It's just good to be a part. It's good to be in November and technically have a chance. So
yes,
I'll enjoy this. It's a lot better than being 3-7. So
yeah.
Even though I don't think it's going to happen for us, hey, it's just fun to be in the conversation. All right. So I know, Gus, you want to move to the NFL real quick? I did want to bring up World Series just real fast. Rangers 1-5. I mean, any reaction? To me, honestly, I'm going to be honest. I forgot Game 5 was even on. that night when it
I
was
did
on.
too. Yeah.
I mean, I think MLB's in a bad spot.
My
I think
issue. You go, Gus.
it's the lack of players that get people to the television. Like the stars in the MLB were all left in the regular season. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, like those three big stars were all out in the regular season.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's a good stat here. So this series averaged 9.1 million viewers. At its peak in the 70s, the World Series averaged over 44. That's how much baseball has lost.
I think one of the important things is also the more like casual media rallying around certain teams. Um, Barcel, I have a hard time listening to some of their stuff, but and I'm going to try to be very unbiased. The Orioles had a fantastic story being told throughout this season. It's their first 100-win season since the 80s. They're good again. We have a youthful team that how could you not like us if you're not a Yankees or Red Sox fan? Um, Everyone was rallying around us, and then we lost to the eventual World Series champions. Happy for the Rangers, but I think if the Orioles had been able to go all the way, we would have had those bigger numbers with people rallying around Baltimore.
What I think the Baltimore loss, it showed that despite, like you said, having a core young talent, Baltimore did not have the aggressiveness
No, most
of
definitely not.
Texas free agents and trading deadline. That made a huge difference.
Oh, most definitely did make a difference. And I am disappointed by the Orioles' performance, but this is progress. The last time we were in the playoffs was, I don't even think I was in high school yet. It's been a long time. I had fun watching it this
For
year. Hopefully, we can live up to it next year.
for
Baltimore
for
baseball is back.
for me, Dylan, for you as an Orioles fan, what you should take from this season is you dominated the division and everybody expected the Yankees to roll this.
Yep.
Like everybody was going through the season be like, oh my god, the Yankees are gonna go strong, and they didn't. The Red Sox, everybody expected them to be okay, goodish, to be at least a wild card. They were bad. So the Orioles took the division and they dominated the East. And in terms of the playoffs, maybe this will kind of make the team stronger.
Yeah.
I'll be optimistic if I was an Orioles fan.
Oh, I most definitely am. They're the the Ravens. I have some hope for, but the Orioles. I'm most proud to be an Orioles fan than I have been in a while because we were always getting bullied by the Yankees and the Red Sox. And now that we're the ones bullying them instead, baseball is enjoyable as an Orioles fan.
Absolutely. You speak of the Ravens, though, so moving on to some quick NFL reaction. I think the Ravens are starting slowly becoming one of the championship favorites right now. I mean, dominating the Seahawks. They just look really good.
Um, we'll see what happens. I have a feeling that something's going to happen to Lamar Jackson like it does every year. That basically ruins things for us. That's just me being pessimistic because every year it's the same thing. Fingers crossed Lamar stays healthy because we paid the man. I hope the money was worth it.
And not only the Ravens paid the man, uh, they also gave the man tools like
Yep.
OBJ. So it's not only you gave the big check, you gave the big the big the big help. So I think for the Ravens, it's all in. I think you expect to at least make the AFC Championship.
I'd like to think so. we've had what it takes to get to the Super Bowl for years. It's just a matter of that freak accident happening where Lamar Jackson gets hurt.
Absolutely. Hopefully he stays healthy because he's exciting to watch.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
I, just around the league, I think the funniest story of the week was by far Josh McDaniels getting fired, and then the Raiders going out to blow out the Giants, and the whole story about like the whole Raiders organization roasting McDaniels, and then him bringing out Antonio Pierce to defend him, and just for McDaniels to get mad at how Pierce defended him. I mean, it's just McDaniels should never be a head coach again, ever.
No.
I mean, he's a
No,
clown.
I think I don't remember if it was Colin Cowherd to point this or not, but he said one thing that was right. This Josh McDaniels being fired for the Las Vegas Raiders is another statement on how the Brady Belichick was way more Brady than people gave credit. Because
Mhm.
the Belichick tree is rotten. It's really rotten.
Oh, it's bad.
That was the last piece. That was the last piece to fall. Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia, Brian, Joe
Flores.
Judge, you name it.
Yeah, it's a disaster. But good for the Raiders. I'm glad they came to their senses.
And,
As a Titan, go ahead.
and also, the Raiders with interim head coaches, normally they do pretty well. It was like 1 or 2 seasons ago they went to the playoffs with their interim head coach.
Yep, 2 years ago. That was Rich Basilia. That was after John Gruden got outed for some
Yeah,
racist
so maybe
emails.
the Raiders do it again.
Oh yeah, sure. Just as a Titan, real quick, I am happy that Derrick Henry is still a Titan. We did not trade him away at the trade deadline. It's good to see it. Number 22 still out there, and Vrabel came to his senses as well, naming Will Levis the permanent starter. There was he was a time about how he wasn't gonna I was gonna put Tannehill back at QB1. I'm just like, no. Levis has already thrown more touchdowns this year than Tannehill has in his starts. And yeah, we're probably gonna lose the vast majority of the rest of our games, but at least we have a young quarterback that's now developing, a guy who I think is actually pretty good. We just don't have a
Yeah.
lot of talent around him.
I want to point out, I'm pretty sure you were among them. A lot of Titans fans were complaining about the selection of Will Levis to the Titans.
Yeah.
And now the
Complaining?
thing, yeah,
No, I
No,
never
see,
complain.
complaining is mild. It's mild.
I said it was the death of the franchise when we picked him. But hey, I'm glad that at least for 2 games, he's proven me wrong. Now, granted, more and more tape that opponents will get, obviously, I think the better they will get against him. But really, Levis' biggest enemy right now is the Titans. I mean, the play calling in Pittsburgh was god awful. It was too conservative. They're doing too many trick plays. Let Levis play quarterback. Like, I'm tired of the reverses, the wildcats. Like, let him play. The only way he's going to get better is if you let him play the freaking position you drafted him to play. Like, I'm tired of it. Like, the Titans offense, they're just trying to be too cute, and it doesn't work because, I mean, yeah, when number 22 is taking the snap, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, he's going to run. Like, wow, shocking. Or, you get on third down. Like, Will Levis is throwing dimes at the end of the first half against a really good Pittsburgh defense. What do? We're going to run the ball on 3rd and 10 with like 30 seconds left. Why? He has proven that he deserves an opportunity to make a play on 3rd down. I am sick and tired of them holding the leash because Levis has clearly proven he gives his offense the best chance to succeed. And he's an NFL quarterback. Let him do his thing. So that is I'm still not happy with Vrabel. Let's just say that much.
Because I think now is the best time ever to see what he's capable of. I don't know why they need to go conservative with Will Levis. Like, let him play. Like, to see what is he capable of, and also to you have nothing to lose. Like, like no fans are going to be disappointing if the Titans don't make the playoffs because this season the fans were already coming with low expectations. Like the highlight of the season is will leave a surprise.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of surprises against Atlanta Falcons, the stadium I was just right next to yesterday, Joshua Dobbs. How about our Astro man from Tennessee? Was having to change teams midweek, go to Minnesota. He doesn't know anyone on the team, and he leads them to a road win in his hometown of Atlanta. I mean, if I were a Falcons fan, I wouldn't watch football again.
I'm
And
feeling
also,
that a lot of Falcons fans kind of disappeared after that Super Bowl loss, so there probably aren't any more
I,
Falcons fans at this point.
I I like that stat that I saw. Well, and this even wasn't the first game that Joshua Dobbs led a team to win in the state of Georgia in the last play of the game.
Yeah, he knows something about doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe he can bless us with his spirit next week when we play the Bulldogs.
But it's nice to see Joshua Dobbs being a solid backup quarterback, which is needed in this league. Like you don't know which starting quarterback is gonna get injured. Like
Yeah.
recently, we had Matthew Stafford. Um, uh, we had Matthew Stafford. We had the Vikings quarterback. I forgot. Oh my god.
Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. Like
The 1 o'clock
Aaron
slate this
Rodgers.
week was just awful. There were so many backup quarterbacks.
Like, look at I saw a little bit
Deshaun
of the
Watson's been hurt a
Rams.
ton.
I saw a little bit of the Rams Packers game, and the backup quarterback was awful, god awful.
I mean, yeah, some of these quarterbacks in 1 p.m. like Clayton Tune. Oh my gosh. He is horrible for Arizona. Thankfully, Kyler Murray comes back this week, probably. So, although at this point, if you're Arizona, do you really want to bring back Kyler Murray? Or do you see this as like an opportunity of like, okay, let's just get him warmed up for the rest of the season for the future?
Yeah, like or maybe you think to get a good backup quarterback.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think they might have to trade him away to get good value. Um, all right, just obviously there's some big ones. Obviously, Chiefs beat the Dolphins. I thought Tua that he was bad, and the Dolphins to me are frauds. They can't beat good teams, and the Bills too are frauds. They can't beat good teams as well. Um, I think the AFC East right now is kind of a mess.
But I think both Bills and Dolphins are gonna get in.
Probably because they mostly play bad teams. Um, I don't think I want them winning a Super Bowl, though. Speaking of not winning Super Bowls, the Dallas Cowboys. What in the world was that last 30 seconds? I mean, Philly gifted you an opportunity to win that football game. And like the last couple of plays by Dak, I mean, taking a bad sack. Instead of spiking the ball to organize a better play, you're going to just chuck it down and waste time on second down. And then on the third down, you throw it to CD at the goal line with no one behind him to toss it to. This is why the Dallas Cowboys never win anything.
It's just classic Dallas at its best.
And and I don't understand like as much Dak Prescott. It looks. I mean, I never met him in person, but he seems like a great person, great personality.
Oh yeah.
But as a big brand and the most popular sports franchise in the United States of America, you can't rely on an average quarterback to take your team to the promised land. You just can't. Like Jerry Jones is getting old. I guess he doesn't want to see his team winning again.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. If Dak Prescott doesn't run out of balance in this 2-point conversion on the last touchdown, the Cowboys wouldn't have even needed to do anything there. They could have kicked a field goal to send it to OT. But Dak Prescott, lacking field awareness, runs out of bounds. It's Dallas for you.
Ah.
Yeah.
All right. quickly, I don't know if we want to do NFL picks still or not.
Let's go. Just a pick. Just a pick.
Just picks. Okay. Oh my God. Thursday night, worst. That might be the worst primetime game of all time. Panthers at Bears.
Huh.
For all
Why?
Michaels and Curb Street.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm probably gonna be watching women's basketball instead this night because I think Iowa with Caitlin Clark's playing at the same time. Play it for the love of God. If you love sports, please watch Caitlin Clark instead of this game. You will thank yourself later. But in terms of who wins, give me the Bears.
Give me the Panthers. I think they're on a good vibe.
I think I'm gonna go Panthers too. It's not gonna be a pretty game, and to be honest, it's an absolute coin toss. But I don't know. Maybe Bryce Young will do something cool.
Yeah, man.
That's the best explanation I got.
Yeah. All right. On to Sunday, Germany, 9:30 a.m. Colts, Patriots. I'm gonna go Colts.
I think I will as well.
Yeah, give me Indianapolis Colts. I mean, the Patriots are just like when Bill Belichick, when Robert Kraft is gonna have a talk, say, "Come here, Bill, let's sit down and discuss a retirement plan." Because as much as we love you and we always be thankful for the rings you gave to us, you just can't be running a football team like that. Like,
Correct.
are the Patriots gonna be living in a rear view mirror or looking forward?
Yep, it is time. The Patriots way has to die. That's for sure. Because it is dying a slow death right now. All right, 1:00 games. We have the Tennessee Titans on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give me Titans. Why not?
Yep, I'm going Titans as well on that.
Sadly, if this game was in late December, I would have definitely invite you, my friend Nick here, and of course you too, Dylan, but definitely you, Nick, because my parents live like 45 minutes to Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium. So give me the Titans.
All right.
And have I ever picked the Titans back-to-back weeks to win?
Oh my God, that's true. I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, next one, the Texans. By the way, holy cow, that Texans Bucks game last week. Whoo, that was one of the best games of the year. And CJ Stroud, rookie of the year. What a quarterback he is. But Texans at the Bengals. I'm gonna go.
Give
Bengals.
me the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm going Bengals as well.
Yeah. All right. Two winning teams here: the Saints versus Astro Dobbs and the Vikings.
Saints.
I'm gonna go Vikings on this one. Actually, I'm just really digging Dobbs' positive attitude towards all of it. Hopefully, he's been taking the past couple of days to get to know his team, and if we know how he can play without knowing the names of his teammates, I'm wondering what he can do when he does know his team.
Yeah, I hope he wins, but I'm gonna have to go Saints just because their defense is pretty good. All right, Packers Steelers normally would be a huge game, but Packers kind of suck this year. But Steelers aren't great either. Give me Steelers.
It's weird because like a couple of years ago, you would have think Aaron Rodgers versus Big Ben, but now it's Jordan Love versus Kenny Pickett. Give me the Steelers.
Just because I'm afraid I might explode if I picked Pittsburgh, I'm going to go the Packers.
All right. And this probably right here is the game of the weekend. Why is this not a primetime game? I'll never understand. 49ers at Jaguars. Give me Jacksonville. Niners are just banged up right now. They need a bye week bad.
Yeah, give me Jacksonville. I think this may be a statement game, like a game to win to show they're a true contender.
Yeah, I'm going Jacksonville as well. I'm looking at the predictions on ESPN right now. The 49ers are favored to win, but I think that Lawrence is going to have an absolutely phenomenal game over Brock Purdy and just pull the upset.
All right. Next game up, we have 5-3 Cleveland visiting the 7-2 Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore too.
Yeah, it's Cleveland. Obviously, they're doing much better than they used to be, but the Ravens are remaining healthy, and when the Ravens are healthy, we're a pretty good team. So Baltimore.
Absolutely. All right, the 4-5 Atlanta Falcons, the traveling circus in the NFL, going to 1-8 Arizona. And you know what? Give me a third straight debut win. Give me Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And honestly, if the Falcons lose this one, I bet Arthur Smith might get fired.
I think I'm going to go the Falcons on this just because looking at that 1-8 for the Cardinals is absolutely pathetic. And I'm going to give Atlanta the benefit of the doubt that they'll be able to pull off something as simple as this.
I think give me Atlanta, but it's going to be close.
Fair enough. All right. Now, probably the best game at 4 o'clock here. We got 6-2 Detroit at 4-4 LA Chargers. I think give me the Chargers.
Detroit.
I think I'll go Detroit as well on this one.
All right, America's game of the week right here, and why I don't know. The 2-7 Giants versus the 5-3 Cowboys. They got to force us to watch Giants Cowboys, even though the Giants haven't been good in forever. Cowboys roll.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those games that Cowboys fans gonna feel like they own the world. They own the NFC, but because the Cowboys are like playing good teams, bad teams, good teams, bad teams. So they feel like in a roller coaster. But give me the Cowboys.
Yeah, this is just going to be one of the games for the Cowboys where it inflates the egos of their fans, thinking they're going to go all the way. Sure, they're going to pull off the win, but it's not going to mean much.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's what. Yeah, perfect, Dylan.
All right. Also, we have the Commanders at the Seahawks. Yeah, I'm going to upset here. Give me Commanders.
I think I'm going to go Commanders as well. Sure, Washington's not doing too great, but there's some sense of life in the team after Dan Snyder's exit. So yeah, I think we'll pull it, or Washington will pull off the win.
I think it's a must-win for Ron Rivera because, as you said, Dylan, new ownership coming, so that means Ron Rivera needs to prove he is the coach for the new ownership group.
All right. For Sunday Night Football, we have the New York Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders. This was going to be a once upon a time Aaron Rodgers versus Devontae Adams. Not the case anymore. So many just great matchups we lost because of that Achilles injury.
No, again, NFL, learn your lesson. Do not make unflexible schedule before the season started. Learn like with college football because the NFL put so much of their chips on prime time with Aaron Rodgers, and now they are. And I feel, do you know who I feel worse for? Is Zach Wilson because he's been exposed time after like it was just in Monday Night Football. Now he's going to be on Sunday Night Football. Like we all know he's not going to be a great quarterback, but everybody feels that he's worse than probably than he is because he's playing so much primetime games that he was not even supposed to be in.
I would agree with that. And for that reason, I'm taking the Raiders.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the scene in Rocky IV when Apollo Creed comes out all dancing before he fights Drago, only to get punched so hard he dies? That's what the Jets are dealing with right now after the loss of Aaron Rodgers. So with that, I'm going the Raiders.
Give me the Raiders.
Absolutely. And the nightcap on Monday night, we have the Denver Broncos 3-5 traveling to Buffalo. Buffalo, to me, is a team in crisis. They are a team in crisis. They do not look right now. And I'm going to be honest, coming off of a bye, give me Denver. why not? Because
It
it,
it 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 just showed that they could not figure out the offensive part of their team after Brian Dable left. Like the time passes, and the more Buffalo stay, uh, you know, without Brian Dable, the worse it gets.
All right.
absolutely.
I've been paying a lot of attention to Buffalo this year with Josh Allen being on my fantasy team, but they like you said, Nick, they've been a little off lately, and with Denver coming off that bye week, they're nice and fresh and ready to go. I'm going to go Denver as well.
Mm. Wow, after them giving up so many points, I didn't think I would be picking them to win in Buffalo on Monday night, but here we are. Buffalo has to regain all of our trust. All right, just to quickly wrap up the American segment, shout out to Ryan Blaney. He won his first NASCAR championship last week over Kyle Larson, back-to-back for Penske and for Ford. Overall, season was pretty good. Obviously, we'll look forward to seeing them come back at Daytona. MLS playoffs are ongoing. And the women hired Emma Hayes from Chelsea, the U.S. women's national team, to be the new head coach. From all indications from like Jason and their Chelsea fans, they're sad to see her go, which means it must be a really good hire. Yeah, that's kind of all I have for American. What's going on in Brazil?
Before we go to Brazil, Major League Soccer playoffs, and I guess unfortunately the Nashville SC lost tonight. Uh, they lost to
Orlando.
Orlando, and they're out. Orlando won the series 2-0, so Nashville unfortunately is out. Atlanta won 4-2. Series tie 1 apiece. Uh, we're gonna have LA advance over in the West. Real Salt Lake, shocker, on penalties eliminated Houston. LA eliminating Vancouver. And what about Sporting KC? I called that because
Mm-hmm.
even though St. Louis was the number one seed, it, the playoffs experience matters. And Sporting KC show up, beat 4-1, and now on the road in St. Louis, beating 2-1. So what a shocker, but I called it. So St. Louis, LAFC and St. Louis advanced, but of course, sad to see Nashville eliminated. But back to Brazil. I mean, Botafogo, what a fallout. What, my God. They're going to pull a Arsenal. I mean, on Wednesday, it seems everything in Botafogo land is going to be fine. They were up 3-0 at halftime. Like Rio de Janeiro radio announcers were calling Botafogo a spectacle, a brilliant performance. But in the second half, everything fall apart. Palmeiras came back to win 4-3, and and at that point last week closed the gap from 6 points to 3 points, a difference. And after Botafogo lost to Vasco, which was on the relegation zone, now there's no point differential. Now the only difference is on winning number. Like Botafogo has one win more than Palmeiras, so the Brazilian Championship is wide open. Even Bragantino from the countryside of Sao Paulo can win. Grêmio can win. Like it's all open. I like on Sunday. I'm so excited to be. Hopefully, if CBF approve my credentials in the Bragantino and Botafogo game, because this game might be a deciding game in the Brazilian Championship. So the championship is wide open. I'll just say that, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because it felt like all year. I was saying, Botafogo needs to make it to the last third of a double-digit lead, and they just couldn't do that, and it always felt uneasy with them, and
And
we're just seeing
and
the
on the Botafogo on the last 12 games only got 12 points. So they're really falling apart. I mean, after they fired Bruno Lage, the players picked their new coach, Lucio Flavio, which was the interim head coach, but the players want him to want him to stay. And now he's being doubted, and Botafogo front office thinking about hiring a more veteran coach. But now, what do you do? Like, there's no time. Like, if you need a coach, you need it right away. You can't wait another week because there's two really important games against third place Grêmio, against fourth place Grêmio, and then third place Bragantino. Like, your whole season comes down to this week. If you lose both of those games, you're out. Like, if Botafogo loses on Thursday to Grêmio and then on Sunday to Bragantino, they're out.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, they are in danger of not only losing the cup, but like falling out of the Sula.
Libertadores? No,
Yeah,
no, no. I don't think that will happen. It's too big of a gap. It's too big of a gap because they to be out of the Libertadores, they need to be in seventh place. I don't see that happening. It would be one of the biggest fallout in sports ever. No, no. Like in title fight, in the being like losing the title, yeah, I can see that. But I think they still gonna be Libertadores next season. And speaking of Libertadores, congratulations, Fluminense winning their first ever Libertadores on a historic win over Boca Juniors 2-1 in Maracanã. Player from their academy, John Kennedy. Oh, of all names, John Kennedy. Really, John Kennedy. I know he's a historical name in America, but now in Brazil too. Kennedy. He scored the winning goal for Fluminense to win the Libertadores there in the FIFA Club World Cup in December, and a lot of people are excited for the matchup of Fernando Diniz, which also is the Brazilian national team head coach, against Guardiola, because both of them they have this really beautiful and really tactical and really offensive style. So a lot of people are excited, and Guardiola gave a in the press conference said Man City is really focused on winning the FIFA Club World Cup. They're gonna go all in because it's also a title Man City do not have.
absolutely. And obviously, for John Kennedy, ask not what you can do for yourself, or ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. In this case, the country.
There we go.
Ask not, ask not, ask not what Fluminense can do for you. Ask what you can do for Fluminense.
There
And
we
he did
go.
a lot for Fluminense. Tell me about it. He'll be forever in Fluminense's fans' mind. I mean, and also a lot of Fluminense fans were skeptical because last time Fluminense went to a Libertadores final, they also played in Maracanã in their home in 2008 and lost in penalty kicks to LEDU. So a lot of Fluminense fans felt like that stain, that loss is now forgotten. Now Fluminense fans can move on from that 2008 loss and enjoy winning the Libertadores Cup. Congratulations to them. They totally deserved. And I'm happy for Fernando Diniz because now with that win, I think he's going to stay Brazilian's national team head coach. I don't see Carlo Ancelotti leaving Europe, leaving Real Madrid to be the Brazilian national coach. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and especially considering that Barcelona lost to Suck Hard today, I don't think he's going to leave Real Madrid either.
Yeah. So, but again, congratulations to the Fluminense fans and Fluminense organization. Winning Libertadores is not easy. Not easy. Like Corinthians won 2012 and then never came close again. So enjoy that feeling.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll conclude episode 103 for Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports, the only American sports podcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports. For Gustavo excuse me, for Gustavo Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. For Dylan Becker, special guest from Maryland. I'm Nick Hill from Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States, and you've been watching Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. Have an excellent